is Abbie Betinis, and I am a composer in residence with the Schubert Club in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I host the Courtroom Concert Series. This season, coming up on our 2012-13 recital series, we have a special concert featuring the music of Dominick Argento, Pulitzer Prize winning composer from the Twin Cities. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Dominick Argento to discuss with him his life and work, his involvement in the Twin Cities arts community, and his collaborations over the years with the Schubert Club.
What I'm doing mostly now is I don't want to say decomposing, but I'm revising things. I can do that, but that's a simple intellectual kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've heard it once. I know what it should sound like.
Yeah.
And I'm not altering it, but I know if I were to try to reharmonize it and all, right now I wouldn't trust myself to do that. So.
Well, it kind of leads us very easily into a program that we're doing of your music, which you've helped us program. Coming up in October,
right.
We'll be featuring Miss Manners on music.
Right, which actually was precisely the kind of thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
It was something I can do. I can orchestrate still. That's never a problem. I don't have to hear that, what it sounds like. I know what individually it will be. And actually it wasn't even a full orchestra because, it's a septet or, septet, 7 people. That's simple, and right now I'm doing a revision of a full-length opera, which is essentially moving scenes around, thinning it out, and doing that, not adding anything. I don't think this is an opera that's 15 years old, so it's difficult.
Yeah.
I said last month somewhere, when somebody asked me a question about revising works, and I said I don't revise very often, and I think the real problem with revising is that what happens if you wait 20 years later, you want to change something. It's like using purple thread on a red fabric where there's a tear. Your style has changed, your attitude has changed. So it really doesn't come out looking very good anyway. So the revision I'm doing is mostly cut and paste, not add anything new to it.
Well, I loved the quote in your little red catalog resume,
yeah.
where you talk about the difference between composing. I actually wrote it down here because it inspired me. You said composition is sometimes a struggle, but orchestration, while it's tedious, is more rewarding and easy. It's like playing with a chemistry set, you said.
Yeah, I've never thought of it as a job. I've always thought of it as a piece of luck. That it's something I like to do.
Yeah.
I've managed to make a living doing it, either teaching it or doing it, actual composing. And I feel blessed in that sense. I don't know a lot of composers. Sure, it's a struggle. There are times when you beat your head against the wall to try to find the right note. But the rewards for it are I think also in that resume that I never think of my music as pieces. I don't know where that term came from, because that implies little separate entities. I think of my music as just one long piece from the earliest thing it's published, not counting a couple of things I threw away before that, up to now, as all sort of, in a sense, movements of the same work. And that work is me. I mean, that's true with every composer.
You feel like you dip your pen in the stream of Argento when you're ready for
it formed a portrait of the composer or whoever wrote the music. And sometimes you look at it from this angle or that angle, but it's always, I think, the same. I'm always reminded of, I think it was the French or Henry James, Daudet may have said it, but a man doesn't write many books, he writes the same book many times. And I've always applied that, for example, to Beethoven. There are not Beethoven's 9 symphonies. There are 9 ways of writing a symphony that Beethoven tried out. But they're all essentially, even the first symphony, and I included 9th in that, of course, and all that nonsense, that all of that is just Beethoven writing a symphony. And I don't mean that in the insulting way that Stravinsky did when he talked about Vivaldi didn't write 500 concerto grossi. He wrote the same one 500 times. That's different. But I think most composers write the same book many ways, and composers write the same music.
It's surprising to me to hear you say that, because every time I hear a piece of yours, it sounds fresh to me.
It sounds like?
Fresh.
Oh, okay.
And I want to ask you about...
I keep it in the refrigerator.
I want to ask you about the pattern I see in your music that where you're often borrowing from things historical, even sometimes lifting exact quotes and putting it into something that is woven into something fresh.
Yes, I've done that all my life. As a matter of fact, I think of the earliest things I wrote 65 years ago, and I was already doing it then. I've come to believe that I do it because it makes me feel like I'm part of the community of composers. That when I'm borrowing from Wagner, it's partly admiration. And even when I'm making fun of it, I wouldn't borrow from him unless it was. But I like to think that all of music, I've used a sort of arrogant expression once. I said that all of music is my oyster. I can borrow a cabaret tune by Kurt Weill, or borrow something. Even I have borrowed from Schubert, believe it or not. So there are no limits. But I'm in love with music in a way. I don't think I've ever used that expression before. I don't think I've ever said it. But I have been in love with music, and the fact that I've been allowed to live a life that dwelled in it is just, for me, something to be very, very grateful for.
That's so beautiful. Well, how do you choose the things that complement your music the best when you're going back through time? Like, I had the opportunity to sing your toccata of Galuppi's.
What about it?
How do you choose the quotation or the style and balance it with originality?
That's quite different. That's not so much a deliberate quotation. That's because the poem by Browning, actually, I found in Florence, where Browning lived for 20 years or so, and in the same flea market where he used to go to buy things, he bought this old album of Galuppi's toccatas. And I did research while I was there, and I discovered that he didn't play the piano, and he played a sonata in B flat, number 11, I think, a toccata by Galuppi, and I found it, and I used it. But in a sense, that's not quoting. I used the whole thing, and it's just interlaced with my music, because Browning's talking about that piece, and as he's talking about it, it reminds him of the decadence of Venice, and it's sort of nice to have it. The harpsichord plays it, and then there's a string quartet. The string quartet is playing my 12-tone music, and this harpsichord is sitting here playing Galuppi exactly as he wrote it. So I don't think of that as quotation as much as stealing.
Lifting. Well, let's go to the program that we have coming up. We're celebrating, of course, your, may I say, 85th birthday.
Prematurely.
So your birthday's in October. We're having this concert, and we're featuring Miss Manners on music. The three songs of Petrarch. Sonnets of Petrarch, and also the Cabaret Songs.
Okay.
Now, your Cabaret Songs were written after your catalogue raisonné.
Yes.
So would you give
So
us...
was Petrarch, and so the orchestration of those managers.
Oh, so they're all new in a way.
Relatively new, yeah.
Would you give us some background, particularly on the Cabaret Songs?
The Cabaret Songs actually are a gift. In April, the University of Maryland also celebrated my 85th birthday, very prematurely.
Very prematurely.
But since they explained, I mean, I was a little embarrassed because I was still 84. They explained that they needed the whole school year to prepare because they did my music almost from Opus 1 to what I think of as posthumous music that I wrote after I died. The lady who was in charge of it was a 10-day festival. Imagine 3 operas, every kind of work there, orchestral, choral, solo, camera. And she was doing my favorite opera, Miss Havisham Fire, Linda Mann was the name. And she had gone to the trouble of convincing the faculty and using everybody in to do this celebration for a composer who's basically unknown at Maryland at the university. But I wanted to give her present, and I had written one or two slightly pop style songs, and I thought I'd just finish off the whole cycle and present it. She premiered it down there, and I love the way she premiered it. I don't think we'll do it that way here. It's for piano and voice, as I wrote it.
Soprano.
Soprano.
Okay.
But actually, I think a mezzo could probably, and there was nothing remarkable about the range.
Mm-hmm.
But she, a month before I went down to Maryland, said, "Do you mind if I add a bass, a trap set, and guitar?" And I said, "No, that's exactly what I would hope would happen." So she did, and they did it almost legitimately, but that's what I wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And I should explain that when I was about 14 or 15, I have talked about this, that my dad thought about the age 14 I should start taking music lessons. There was a salesman going around the neighborhood, and he was talking to families. My dad said, "Yeah, it's a good idea. What do you want to play?" I said, "Drums." That was fascinating. But he said, "Think again." I said, "Trumpet's nice." No. I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Accordion. You love the accordion." I don't love the accordion. I hate the accordion. But I studied accordion. My father had a cafe. And after about 6 months, I was good enough to play the melody of any tune. He had a little trio for dancing, piano, drums, guitar. And he said, "Why don't you play with them?" And so to their ignominy, I would sit on the stage and play, whatever, the Blue Moon or whatever it's called. And I even wrote some. And that's how I got interested in music. Little by little, I started moving toward classical music. And by the time I was 16, I just forgot about the accordion, was studying piano and really looking at classical music and ignoring that. But there was always that element of Tin Pan Alley in the background there. And I even had a fake pseudonym for myself because I knew what's on the music. I was calling myself Nick De Silva. There was a famous De Silva in that period. In any case, that that's probably the most recent thing I wrote, mainly because I could do that with my eyes closed and my arm tied behind my back.
Well, and you also wrote the words, too.
I did the words, So they're not bad. But you don't really strive for wonderful poetry and pop music. You just hope it fits the section. No, I enjoy doing it. I'll never probably ever do it again. But I was sort of given a go-ahead by learning that Schubert wrote Cabaret Songs and Britain wrote Cabaret Songs. I thought, well, it's not all that awful.
Right. And William Bolcom, you think of him?
Who?
Did you think of William Bolcom?
No, I didn't think of him. I never think of him. No, I'm joking. Yes, I know. And he probably does it better than anybody else because he's got a real thing about
Now, tell us a little bit about the 3 sonnets of Petrarch.
The 3 sonnets were written about 3 years ago, and it began with an appreciation for the poetry of Petrarch. My office mate at university for about 17 years was Dr. Loudon, musicologist. Okay. And he knew I composed and often spent a lot of time looking for texts and stuff. And he said, "Have you ever thought about the Laurel poems?" And I thought I had a PhD in education, but I didn't know what the Laurel poems were. He said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, that's Petrarch's famous mistress, or would have been mistress." He said, his poetry, there were about 300 sonnets about Laura herself. And he said they'd make a wonderful, group of songs. I did look them up, and as a matter of fact, I was finding them very wooden because I was reading the English translations of them, and most of the translations are old. And I said that to Bob, and he said, "Well, why don't you set them in Italian?" I don't believe in setting a language I don't know intimately, although it gave me the idea of reading them in Italian, and I did, and I realized they sound so different. And I couldn't set Italian, and I didn't like the new translation, so I did a translation myself. And I felt that by doing that, I really wanted to set the music. The words, when I write words, feel sort of bare. Even, the book, I like to set my own book to music sometimes.
Oh, that'd be so interesting. A mirror and a mirror.
Yeah.
Well, I just read a little bit about Laura and Petrarch.
Laura and Petrarch, she was a married woman. We don't know much about it. And when he first saw her, and it was very much like Dante meeting Beatrice in Florence. It was love at first sight. But obviously there wasn't anything he could do except admire her from a distance. Yeah. He lived his whole life adoring this woman. I don't know that he never refers to the fact that she knew it or not. And then when she died, he really wrote a number of grieving sonnets about her. And some writers will say that that was a conceit of the era, that everybody in chivalry and everything had this idealized woman, that the troubadours wrote songs about that kind of thing, that he really wasn't in love with her. There was no Laura, is what they said.
They said it was all a figment of his imagination,
right.
That she maybe didn't exist.
And something L poets did that kind of thing. Yeah. And I felt, after having worked with the Italian language of it and knowing what he really was saying and reading all of them that I could, there was a Laura. In fact, that piece was commissioned maybe 5 or 7 years ago by the BBC for a program, and they asked about program notes. They sent me what they were going to use, and the man who was supplying the program notes sort of implied that Laura was this fictitious character that poets of that time created just so they'd have something to write about. And I wrote back and I said that's absolutely not the case, that there was a Laura, and from what I know, that's genuine emotion that Petrarch is displaying. So,
but as a composer, you felt you had to know whether she was real or not?
Yeah,
that was important.
It would make all the difference. If I thought that it was just a creature of his imagination, it would not have interested me.
What would you have done differently if you were forced
to written Cabaret Songs.
Well, what can we look forward to on this program that maybe we haven't heard before?
I'll look forward to hearing the Miss Manners, because that was also done in Maryland. It was premiered there. May I back up a minute?
Yes, of course.
Miss Manners was commissioned by Miss Manners' husband, who lived in Washington. That was done years ago. I was never satisfied. They were published and performed, but the piano, I thought sometime I might want to do it for a little ensemble. When I heard about Maryland, they're 15 miles from Washington, the university, and I knew Miss Manners would be coming up for various concerts. I wanted to put this on, and Linda Matt, I mentioned earlier, said, we're doing the Elizabethan song with that Baroque ensemble. Would you like to use that? And I thought about it for a minute. That might be fun, but a harpsichord? I said harpsichord makes me think of snuff boxes. And Miss Manners makes me think of teacups. So I thought maybe a celeste would be more interesting. So I finally settled on a string quintet, celeste, and percussion.
Can I change gears for a little bit and ask you about the community of the Twin Cities when you arrived here? When you came, did you come in 1958?
When I came here, which was 1959 or 58, actually. Yeah. It's not very important. I didn't unpack my bags for the first year. I'm not staying in the Twin Cities. I was waiting. I had finished my PhD. I had a Guggenheim following that. A year in Italy, I was just waiting to be showered with job offers. And a year later, May and August came, no job offers. And at the last minute, this came at the University of Minnesota. That was fine, but I thought just until a real job comes along. As you know, I spent all 40 years of my teaching career. When I came here, I wasn't all that pleased about it. I didn't know much about it. Little by little, by the time I was, I guess, the second or third year, as things started to happen. First of all, the two most important things were meeting Bruce Carlson of the Schubert Club. I had an orchestral piece done here for soprano and orchestra, sort of a mini Mahler IV, the soprano last movement. And Bruce was still a student in the law school, grad school. And the day or two after that performance of that work, he wrote a letter to the Star Tribune, a long letter, raving about the music, about my wife, her appearance, her singing, everything. Years later, I got to meet him, and of course, since then, my affiliation with the Schubert Club was one of the highlights of my career. The other thing that happened at almost the same time was Tyrone Guthrie came to town, and he needed composers, and between myself and Paul Fettler, who was also teaching at U, we did most of the music at those first 5 or 6 seasons. And then the best part of all was that as the Guthrie Theater was being built, some of us had an idea of using the Walker Art Gallery, who was sponsoring contemporary music. We wanted to do Albert Herring, it was all in the air, okay, very big. And Walker said, sure, go ahead, do it. And they even offered us to use the Guthrie Theater before the Guthrie used it. The building was finished. It was months before they were starting. Why don't you just use it? We got cold feet. We didn't have an opera company. We didn't. But we said, why don't we, Dom, why don't you write an opera? I know about it. We can do a Baroque opera and a modern opera, 2 short ones. And I wrote something called The Mask of Angels, which is a religious comedy. And I guess I was the one who chose The Mask of Venus and Adonis by John Blow, which is a Baroque piece I adore. We did that overnight. We were a company. I mean, just no question that we had to have follow-up seasons, we had rave reviews. And after that, I got to thinking, this is rather a nice community here. I mean, the people I was meeting, Schubert Club, the opera, at Walker. And I have since then, I think, I made a deliberate decision. I love being here, and I've always said to my students, if you can find a community where they really need a composer, go there. Don't head immediately for Los Angeles or New York with 15,000 other people looking for the same thing. And I've had that feeling that I've been wanted here, that I fulfill a need. It's nothing very big, but I don't feel like I'm excess baggage in the community. I feel that I've been part of the community.
A pillar of the community.
Yeah, well, a pillar.
Within the first 10 years of you coming to the Twin Cities, the Guthrie opened, the Walker,
in the first 5 years or so,
Minnesota Public Radio,
Yeah.
Bruce Carlson came on board here.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a renaissance, a cultural revolution maybe.
And about 5 years after that, after all these things are going, my wife and I were in Salzburg, obviously paying homage to Mozart, and we were at something called the Peterskeller for dinner, and a man sitting at the table, German, and he heard us talking English, and he said, do you mind if I talk to you? And he moved over with those long picnic tables. And he said, I'm just back from America. He said, can I ask where you're from? And I said, well, you would know, but we're from Minneapolis. He said, oh, the accents of America. And I never thought about it, but he was absolutely right. I thought he was pulling my leg for it. But he said, no. He said, we read in your paper, you have the Center Opera Company, you do very inventive stuff. You have the Guthrie Theater there, you have the Minnesota Orchestra, which is wonderful, it's Skovicheski. You have St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. He knew all of these things. He said, we read about that over here. And I said, you're right, maybe it is the accent of America.
How do you see the community changing? You've now been here so long. Do you see that growing, or what is the trajectory of that cultural awareness?
It has remained to me what I've added to those which look like perks. What I've added to that is a real understanding that what is wonderful about this community is not so much this place or that place or this group or that organization. It's the people. The people here really, art is something for them. It's not an accessory. It's not something they do to please their friends or they want to be seen. I think people go to the orchestra because they want to hear the orchestra. They go to the opera because they want to see an opera. And that nothing else. And they, even to this day, we started out when we began the what's now the Minnesota Opera with Center Opera, doing nothing but premieres. I mean, three or four premieres. But although that's changed, they still do, as you may have noticed, they're doing 1 out of 4 operas every time it's a premiere. That's even rare. And so that carries on. The Schubert Club is still, I think, the great organization for bringing in people you really want to hear. So I can't say, it's changed very much. It increased, and I think the support for it has grown with it.
Yeah. Well, would you mind if I asked you some technical composition questions that I'm dying to know the answers to?
Okay. I'll try.
I want to tell you, we opened a forum online where people were, and I said, I'm going to be interviewing Argento. Would you tell me what I should ask him? And I got a very interesting question. Now, this is from a fan of yours in Texas. And he wants to know, my friend Josh, he wants to know, when you're writing, this is a very technical question, when you're writing music, the smallest unit of measure is often smaller, the 8th note, the 16th note,
yeah.
Where most composers would choose a quarter note as the small unit of measure. Mm-hmm. What makes you decide to use such small durations in your writing?
It's interesting because there's a composer here in town who seemed to have a blog. I didn't see it, but I thought, who also criticized me for exactly that. It was a criticism. I mean, why? And I have a very substantial answer for it. Look at Stravinsky's Capriccio for piano and orchestra. It's a work he wrote in the 20s. Mm-hmm. Most people don't even know it's barely played. I owned it, and I was inspired. And I remember being very taken with. He had things that, what are those? 132nd notes or 120. I can't remember. And he uses very small units that way. Mm. And I read his explanation of it, which is why I do it. He said, the smaller the players pay more attention. He said, when you see 16th notes and a dotted 16th followed by a 32nd, you really sit up and take notes. You see a dotted quarter followed by an 8th, no big deal. I've been there before.
So you relax as a performer.
You relax when you see
larger duration.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel that way. You look at a piece by Palestrina, and there's his notation, but it all just looks so plain with all of those quarter notes and an endless flood of quarter notes. But you look at something by Stravinsky, and even to the last piece, he was still doing that kind of thing.
I wonder also about how it changes the text stress. You work so often in poetry, prose, that if you have to count small durations as the performer, you focus less on beats 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm. If you're sensitive to the way language flows, and I find that melodic as well as rhythmic, then you can't settle just for what they call the rational divisions. You need things like, well, we all use triplets, but you need quintolets, and you look at some serious stuff by people like Stravinsky and others, you see there's a lot of septolets as well. And I don't regard that as an affectation. To me, it's just a tool, it's a device to achieve what I want to achieve.
I love it.
Well, but performers don't.
Your melodies, too, sometimes surprisingly disjunct and still singable.
But that's language. I mean, I don't know. If we had a grapher as I'm spelling right now, you would see it doing that.
Yeah.
But I think
you would see it doing that.
If it's doing that with the words I'm speaking, it's going to first of all make those words clearer to a listener. The worst thing you can do is just that flat out repetition.
So it's about the communication.
Vern Sutton, who's probably done more of my music than any living person, even dead person, that people don't play my music. Vern once said, and I think he still would abide by it, he said, the one thing about Argento is that the notes never quite go to where you think they're going to go, but after you've learned it that way, you can't imagine it happening any other way.
That's
and
right.
I think that's just because there is such for me, a kind of bond between the spoken way language operates and the musical way we convert it.
Could I ask you too, on this same subject, so much of your music has so much humor in it. And I wonder, when you're thinking about setting text, how do you control the timing? Because you're obviously writing out of time, right? You're writing much slower than it would be performed.
Oh,
how do you manufacture the humor?
You're thinking about it ahead of time. I mean, before you rarely are writing it down as it's coming to you. You've already thought about it, and writing it down is in a sense kind of taking the dictation. Or in my case, since I don't have perfect pitch, I will have some idea of how I want it, but I'll have to find it at the keyboard to find the actual note. But as far as the rhythmic aspect, or even the emotional quality you're talking about, that's sort of been worked in at the beginning.
So you always imagine that before you sit down at the piano to try it out?
I do.
Always
I do, and then, as I think I talk about it in the book, I always feel like I'm in control of the first, I don't know, first 5 minutes, let's say 3 minutes of a piece. After that much is on paper, that 3 minutes is controlling the piece. Because I can't do anything. Once the first 3 to 5 minutes are on manuscript, I can't do some of the things I thought I was going to do. The piece, I do say somewhere, no piece I've ever written turned out to be the piece I started to write. I mean, every piece. And I've learned why that happened. That is because you think you are writing that piece, and you do it for 3, 4 pages. But by then, you are so committed to what those pages are, they tell you where they want to go. And I think I used it in describing composition, that music listens to me for the first 2 or 3 minutes, but then I start listening to the music, and they tell me where those notes. I think I found where the one would go.
I love that in your book you included the journal entries day by day. And really seeing, it's fascinating, especially for those of us who have you up on a pedestal, to see how hard it is, the struggle day to day, where you have to let go as a composer and listen to the music, and where you can step in and guide it. It's very interesting. I'm so glad you did that. When the difference between setting poetry and setting prose, I think you probably get this question a lot. Would you indulge us in what that process is like between, say, Petrarch and Miss Manners, you know?
Okay.
Or is that too...
You could put me on the point of a dilemma, because those are 2 pieces that will not apply to your question. But let me answer your question. The difference for me between poetry and prose is that most poetry, as far as I know, and it does include Petrarch too, was written for public consumption. It was meant to be published, it was meant to be read, it was meant to be discussed and talked about. Prose, for the large part, letters, the Diary of Virginia Woolf, the letters of Emily Higgins, these were not public, these were private utterances. To me, there's greater emotional reward in what these people felt, whether Poe or anyone, privately, than what they said to the public. I mean, I don't know an awful lot about Shakespeare, about the Dark Lady of the Sonnets, from the Sonnets. I mean, he knew, first of all, he was dedicating it to his Lord. He knew they were going to be public, people were going to read them. That makes you want to be a little more careful what you put in paper. However, if he was writing to the beloved herself, he could have said things that came from the deepest part of him. And that's what I find rewarding as a composer. In Miss Manners, of course, hers is prose, but I said that one doesn't apply because she was writing for a newspaper, that's why that doesn't work. But more typical would be the Virginia Woolf with the Emily Dickinson and the Elizabeth Barrett Browning. There are exceptions. I don't make that a blanket rule. I love Catullus, I Hate and I Love. That was obviously written, but that happened to be an interesting case because I think he really was torn apart by Lesbia and his love for her. And she did turn him on hot and cold. But he was willing to also write about it. That's one thing. I don't know. We have writers like that today, don't we? Who write confessional kind of books.
Right.
But there's always been in my mind, at least with what I've said to me, that distinction about. And interesting that when I do use poetry, I'm much more likely to use it with a chorus. Because that is a group, there's already kind of something going on.
So the quality of being public or private changes the instrumentation and the voicing.
Yeah.
So a more private thing, you use a chamber ensemble, smaller.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final statements about the Schubert Club in general?
The Schubert Club and what?
The Schubert Club in general. We are so so proud to have been the commissioning party for your Pulitzer Prize winning song cycle.
I wrote 3 major works. I always think of writing them for Bruce, but it is for the Schubert Club. Primarily, I set those 3 works apart from almost everything else I wrote. And I've talked about this before. There was something in writing for the audience that came to the Schubert Club, the audience that the Schubert Club had fostered, that was just much more challenging than writing, I don't know, for Minnetonka Golf Course or something silly. And interesting to me, Virginia Woolf, the Anjay Expedition, and
Chekhov.
Which one?
The Chekhov.
Oh yeah. But all 3 of them for me are connected. All of them, the protagonist is dead at the end. It's really a peek into their private lives, into Virginia's diary, into what Elizabeth said to her sister and Chekhov to his wife. They're all serious. There's not much fun stuff in it, although there's some humor. They're really over here. And the other, I think there are now 8 other cycles. They're over here. And it has to do with, well, partly Bruce, the audiences of the Schubert Club, which I've known from almost the beginning of my stay here. And also the fact that Bruce gave me great singers to write for. I mean, to write for Von Stade, for Håkan Hagegård. The original commission that turned into Virginia Woolf started out as a cycle that was going to be written for Jessie Norman, oddly enough, coincidentally speaking. She wasn't going to make it for that year, so he said, how about Beverly Sills? I said, well, okay, but she got sick or something, and he finally offered me Janet Baker. It is incredible for a composer at that time. I had never written for anybody who lived outside of Minnesota. Wow. But that was just then when I started to feel like I am a member of this community. I belong here. This is where I want to live and I want to work.
And the quality of performers.
Well, you don't get any better than the kind of artists that the Schubert Club has brought. Yeah. Interesting. This season at the Dallas Opera, you have a poster, as a matter of fact, in your office. I didn't know it was here, of the Aspirin Papers.
Yeah.
It was a piece I wrote 25 years ago. Bruce was there with a lot of Minnesotans. I didn't know he had the poster here. But it's being done this year in Dallas, and it's being done by 2 artists I think you just had here, or have Susan Graham and Nathan Gunn. Yeah. And I don't know that I would have even known who these people were if they hadn't been here one time or another.
Wow. Well, how wonderful that this organization could provide you with some inspiration, and you can, what a gift to our community you've been and brought us. Thank you so much for being part of this interview.
It was a pleasure.